Please welcome our County Executive, Ryan McMahon.
Thanks,
Hi,
everybody. And it's great to see everybody again. And really take advantage of the zoo. I don't know if anyone's been recently, but it's phenomenal. The amount of little ones that keep on coming. We got koala bears for the summer, and obviously the baby elephants are just very special. So please take advantage of that with your families. But look, we've had probably, I would say, the most significant, impactful 2 weeks since the Micron announcement, from a flurry of activity. So just to give everybody, a synopsis on all of it, it's been well reported, but the site a couple weeks ago received its zone change. So from a building standpoint, really important. The town of Clay passed that. We received an application from Micron at the County Industrial Development Agency. That's what triggers a couple things. One, lead agency for all of your environmental reviews, and the county IDA will be lead agency. But second, that's what triggers Micron asking for benefits, a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of taxes, just so everybody understands that. The land today, whatever it's taxed at, Micron will continue to pay taxes on that. What the benefit is what would have been built on it. So really, people say they're getting this in benefits. The reality is pilots, if we didn't give them a pilot, they weren't coming. So they really, the community loses nothing. You just gain everything else. So the really important thing with that, though, is that with that application is a substantial fee to the county IDA. And that will help us pay for all of our professional services to review the environmental reviews. A lot of money will go to other economic development initiatives. And so $26 million is the IDA fee. So when you think about the idea of people suggesting that this isn't real, what are you paying $26 million for then, right? No CEO is going to greenlight that if this isn't real. But it was special too, from the standpoint that we received the first phase, which is the first 2 fabs that are going to be built, $51 billion application. No community anywhere ever has received a $51 billion application in their community. So history there. Fast forward to this past week, which we've been running rampant. Micron unveiled their semiconductor exhibit at the most, which is really cool. I saw some of you over the last few days, but when I was in Boise, I went to the Idaho State Museum right there, and certainly Micron is highlighted very prominently, being the state's anchor employer. And the exhibits at the State Museum are not even comparable to what Micron's done here with the most. So congratulations to the most. Get down there, see the exhibit. It's awesome. And they put a lot of effort and a lot of resources into it. We then had a full day on Tuesday, engagement with environmental justice groups, engagement with veteran groups, a kind of an open house at Cicero North Syracuse Middle School in the town of Clay, where you could have learned anything and everything about the project. Just crazy engagement with the community. And then yesterday we had some childcare announcements with Micron. They've invested in the YMCA, which people probably already knew, impacting over 2,000 families to help them with childcare costs. But we actually have a program with Peace Incorporated where we know that you need to build up more capacity, and you can't just do it through the larger institutions. Your mom and pop shops and for child care centers. We funded a pilot program where they would work with these folks to help get them licensed, get them the support services they need for their back office. And Micron really liked that. And Micron's now funding, another round of that because we know that it's not just cost for childcare, but it's access. And so that was a nice little announcement as well. When you look at some of the other things that have happened since then as well, our countywide plan got passed by the legislature. So Plan On, which is the first comprehensive plan we've had in this community for 25 years, is now the law of the land. And again, the ideas behind that, which are very important to you all, center-driven development to try to capture this density, town centers, hamlets, Main Street development, is a way to build up the housing needs, to build up the commercial needs, without essentially jeopardizing character of existing neighborhoods. Second, it talks a lot about housing itself, and all of the above housing strategy, from single family development to affordable to seniors housing, which really I think is critical to open up existing inventory that you all can sell. And so in addition to that, transportation, how are we going to move throughout the community, and look at rapid transit as ways not just to move within the city, but within emerging communities and employment centers, continuing to invest in what makes us unique in this community with our blueways, our lakes, our rivers, and our green spaces. We really take these things for granted. It truly helped differentiate us during a national site selection process. And then the last piece is ag. We still need to be an ag community that makes our own food. We need to support farmers, farmland preservation. Agritourism is something that we're going to continue to invest in more and more as we need that part of our economy to grow with our population. Our OCHIPS program, which is a grant to help really spur more housing development, to really meet that kind of gap funding challenge that many builders are having with inflationary costs or different infrastructure costs. We'll have another round of those coming out in the next 2 weeks. We have another, I think, 10 projects that we're excited about. And another big thing that happened, which we're ecstatic about, is the closing on Great Northern Mall. We worked really hard to get that. I won't say he's not the worst actor we had, but the former owner of Great Northern Mall, he's not as bad as Moonbeam over at Shopping Town, but he wasn't investing in the property. They owe taxes. We leveraged him to get into an agreement with a local developer. And then that local development team with Hart Lyman teamed up with Conifer, and they closed this past week. Which is really important because that's going to be a critical center-driven project to accomplish some of our housing needs, but also some other really important needs. Medical infrastructure. I think you'll see a lot of medical on that site, but that will be a town center, similar to what we see in Florida, similar to what we see in the Carolinas, and we're really excited about that. That will be a 9-figure investment into our community there as well. We're getting ready for the budget. And so we did, you probably heard me complain about this earlier in the year. New York State, things to watch out for. They've spent a lot more money than they've taken in over the last few years, and they got kind of addicted to the COVID money that they received. And so the first blow is they hurt us, being county governments, and intercepted some of our Medicaid funding that we've received from the federal government for well over 20 years. So whether we litigate or not, we don't know, but that's a $14 million hit to our budget that we would have used to invest in critical areas. But we are going to be good. We're in good shape. We've managed this budget very well. We'll deliver another surplus in 2023. We've delivered one every year since I've been county executive, but we will have substantial property tax relief. And so I'm not going to, give away the headline yet, but that's coming. And I have that presentation in September. So excited about that. I was in San Francisco. I forgot about this. For SemiCon West a little over 2 weeks ago. And we hosted a supply chain meeting, a reception with Micron, myself, and then the mayor of Boise, Idaho, as we're working together. And it was phenomenal. We had well over 100 companies there wanting to learn about the project, learn about how they can fit in, co-locate. And many of these companies weren't even on our radar. And trust me, we've been studying who we think should be here, and we've been meeting with them throughout the year. So we're really excited. As Micron finishes their environmental reviews at the end of this year and probably Q1 of next year, those companies then will get very serious because they have to get here before the fab's actually built. But we're talking tens of thousands of jobs with these companies. So things just really couldn't be better right now. The engagement with Micron and the community at every level is just really phenomenal. So happy to take questions.
Were the Micron open house sessions recorded, and what is happening with Shopping Town Mall? And then the third one is from the same person. Will the tax relief benefit city properties as well?
Third question first. Yes, the city is in Onondaga County, so they will. They get every resident of the city gets taxed the same as any resident of Town of Clay, Manlius, or wherever. So absolutely, that tax relief will help. The related to the Micron open house, I do believe it was recorded. I'll ask my team to look into that and get back with your leadership. And then Shopping Town, we did have some movement on Shopping Town, which is good. The difference between Shopping Town and Great Northern is the reciprocal easement agreements, which really allow veto power over potential development. At Great Northern are with individuals that are local and that we have working together, whereas at Shopping Town, the legacy real estate holding company for Sears in Benderson, who controls Macy's, have not been essentially cooperative. So what we have been working with the District East team is they need to finish their environmental review so that we can then consider eminent domain at the county IDA level. And then the District East team would then reimburse or backstop the county for whatever those costs were to acquire the Macy's and or the Sears. This will happen, and this will happen in the next 60 days. So that's leverage. Maybe that leverage forces Benderson to come to the table and negotiate an outcome quickly. I'm disappointed. I met with the CEO there, and I thought we were going to have an easier outcome here, but it is what it is. We'll take the properties if we have to through eminent domain. We can't let that property sit idle, and it's a key piece of our plan to really develop the housing that we need.
Thank you. The next question is there an update on the aquarium?
There is. So the aquarium has, where are we now? We have, we're about, I'd say 75% done with the design. That will be done in November, December range, 100% done. The operator has been selected. We're just negotiating the contract with the operator. We closed on, or I don't think we've closed on the land, but we have legislative approval to buy the land at the Inner Harbor. We've been working really closely. We developed an advisory committee to work with our higher education institutions, specifically SUNY ESF, to work with the Onondaga Nation, so that as part of this, outside of really cool exhibits with saltwater marine life and some freshwater marine life, we could tell the story about the cleanup of Onondaga Lake, and also tell the story about the Haudenosaunee and essentially the history of where democracy was founded. So we expect to have some really cool exhibits there to do that. And so we're excited about that. But this will start, construction starting this year on the aquarium. And so again, between that project and then what's going on with Micron, the Inner Harbor is going to change, and it's going to change quickly in a very positive way.
Thank you. What do you see as rapid transportation between Centers and Syracuse area? Will this include lakes in our area?
It should. So what we got to, so right now, there's going to be a bus rapid transit system within the city of Syracuse proper, implemented by 2026. What we really need to focus in on is some sort of rapid transit, whether it's BRT or maybe being more aspirational on the 31 corridor at some point with some sort of light rail. But we really need kind of an employer-driven rapid transit system. We have so many anchor employers right now, even outside of what, Micron. When you think of Amazon and you think of JMA in the city proper, but JMA outside the city proper is still very busy. All of our aerospace companies, we have companies like Giovanni Foods, which are growing off the charts. So we got to figure out a way to get people from our core out to these jobs. But then, to your point, a leisure rapid transit, right? If you think about how cool it could be if you had a system where you could spend a Saturday hitting up 4 or 5 different recreational and leisure opportunities. It's good for the economy. It's good quality of life. And quite frankly, it's what younger people want.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next question is, are there any concerns about the water needs for Micron? Where will this resource come from?
Lake Ontario. And the reality is the headlines you're seeing are kind of like a 20-year build out worst case scenario. The recycling specifics that will be done on site have not been finalized, and certainly that's going to impact the water intake. Highly unlikely Micron's using as much water as the city of Syracuse in an average day. So these are good headlines. They're good worst case scenarios that we have to study for. The reason why we have to do that is because we need to be very transparent as part of the environmental review, or else we can get sued, which could slow the project down. But we will build a second pipe coming from Lake Ontario. That will be very good for this community because that will create resiliency and also more capacity for other development. Other companies that make things will come here because we have water.
Perfect, thank you. Next question is, have you been approached by any national builders about coming into our area in preparation for the big need for housing as a result of the Micron project?
Yeah, a lot of it right now more focused to what I would say is the phase 1 residential growth, which is more kind of multi-use, multi-family. But yeah, we've heard from all of them. And, I think eventually once the hiring picks up, the single family residential is going to take off at that point a little bit more. And certainly I'm sure some of these nationals are going to try to get in the game as well. And at some point we'll need some of them too.
Thank you. Update on the 81 project.
Moving forward, if you've seen the work on 481 that's happening, that's kind of the first level of work. I don't think, there are still a little bit of litigation going on. I don't think the outcome of a community grid is going to change. And so that's happening. Our environmental review related to Micron, what they're concerned about is what happens north, not what happens south of the site. So through the environmental review, we'll know what needs to happen to meet the challenge. Potential Codnoy on-ramp on 481, potential new exit off 81 on Mud Mill, maybe potential exit to the site. These are all things that will be studied, and one of them is going to have to happen, if not 2 of them.
Okay. Next question is, are there any plans for vacant convent properties on Grant Boulevard or Court Street in the city?
Yeah, I think actually there is a major housing apartment project planned for that. And I know that there was some numerous grant funding. I told the mayor, looking if there's a gap, that's a good OCHIP project. Let me know. But I think that's ready to rock and roll.
Are there any other tech companies exploring coming to the upstate region?
Yeah. So we're in talks right now with an existing company about a 9-figure investment expansion. And then we are also communicating with other semiconductor companies. So, the answer is yes. That remember, if you normally, this is how spoiled we are right now, right? We weren't spoiled for a long time, but we're getting really spoiled. But normally when we announce Lotte Biologics, $75 million reinvestment into Bristol Myers, that's like the news for the year, right? That's all we're talking about. We don't even talk about that, right? JMA Wireless expands another $30 million off of their already $70 million downtown. We're not even talking about it. I mean, Cryomech Engineering, which is in the semiconductor space, and they make cryogenic materials. They're doing another expansion. They just did one. You look at what's going on with Lockheed Martin. They're idling they're idling locations in Massachusetts, and those jobs are coming here. So all these things are just happening, but Micron's eating up all the oxygen, which is cool. But we got a lot going on. And there's parts of the state that are struggling. But right now, that's not what's going on here.
Perfect. Next question. Do you anticipate more building happening in the city of Syracuse based on the recent zoning changes? And do you see the city of Syracuse poised to be the area where people plan to buy and or rent versus Cicero, North Syracuse?
I think everybody does well. I think you need and everybody knows I'm a city guy. The challenge was with the parts of existing city neighborhoods is it's harder to build, right? And it's harder to update the housing stock. It takes more resources to do that. But I do think that the Inner Harbor is a logical place where you're going to see a ton of investment. And I do think that the housing prices will continue to appreciate just like everywhere else. The developmental center right next to the zoo, great project going in there. But to do single family residential development in the city is hard because you got to cluster available land, and that takes a longer time. But I do think the city will have those options at some point. You're going to see more growth in the northern suburbs. You just are, then because there's more land. And so Lysander, Van Buren, Clay, Cicero, you're proportionately going to see more growth there than anywhere else in the community.
What can we as realtors do to help you with the needs of what Micron's demands will be?
Well, look, I think the reality here is when we're really in government focusing in on partnering on barriers to employment, because these barriers to employment are going to be what we need to address to get the workforce ready for Micron and the whole semiconductor industry and existing businesses, to be able to succeed. And Micron's success is our main focus. And so part of this is all psychological still. And the fact that people who have been here or and have left, or people that are still here, many people still don't buy in to what is happening. And the reality is part of the easiest way to get people back here to meet these amazing workforce challenges are folks that left. And you're all ambassadors in the community. And updates like this are important because you know what's going on. You can speak intelligently to it when you run into people that just don't know what they're talking about. So we really need you to be the ambassadors and, eyes and ears and boots on the ground when we're missing something. And when you see gaps and things that we're not looking at. So I really value our relationship we have with all of you, and really expect you to be the ambassadors that we need you to be, but also to be truth tellers, and truth tellers to us when we're not doing something right, and truth tellers to the state of New York when they're not doing things right, that could prohibit progress.
Mhm.
Thank you. Oh, hold on, one more question just came in. Is any effort being taken to prevent more suburban sprawl north of the city versus new urbanism or traditional town planning to more walkable communities versus car-dependent housing?
Mm.
Yeah, you should go to our website and look at our comprehensive plan. I mean, it's basically the center-driven development is driven around the focus of it. We control sewers. One of the things that we're not going to do is just expand sewers for residential outflow when we have inflow opportunities within the existing system. And so that's something we've been very clear. At some point when we're growing, you know, and you're protecting your ag that you need for your community, when you're full and you're growing, that's not sprawl anymore, it's just growth. And so I think overall what you're going to see in this community is you're always going to have your center being the city of Syracuse, where you have the older housing stock, the architecture, the history, right? But the reality is we're going to have more than one city, and the town of Clay could be a city today. They're big enough. The town of Cicero will have a decision at some point. Do they want to be a city? And that's why when we talk about centers, you need to develop this in a way where they're aspirational and people want to live there. And so the reality is large communities that grow, you know, they have more than one kind of key center point. And, you know, we're going to do it in a way that makes sense, and falls within that roadmap with our comprehensive plan.
Thank you. And the last question I see that came in so far is, can we have a concise document about all the development and investments that were spoken about today?
I don't know. So I would have to, I'm not going to draw that up for you, but I'll see if my team can work on that. I'm too busy to do that, but yeah, we really should. It's tough to keep track of. And one of the things we're doing is our planning department's trying to keep track of all these planning agendas at all the towns. But certainly we can try to look for, you know, some of our, something to get, you know, kind of a memo out maybe on some of the various things that have gone on.
Mhm. Okay, Ryan, I have a question. And of course, anybody can go on your website. There's a lot of information on your website, and it may answer some of the questions that people may have. As far as single-family housing and some of the national builders, there was talk that the towns would have to approve or have some say in how the projects would look like. That it just wouldn't be a bunch of row houses or a bunch of. Is that still true, or?
Yeah. So the towns still have planning and zoning approvals. We're not going. We've been really clear related to incentives. We're not giving any incentives to anything that's not tier 1 development. And we frowned on some things already that we've seen. And so when we get plans, our planning department's reviewing it for quality, looking at density. One of your previous questions, walkability, huge for us, right? And so we go back and forth with the towns on things. And again, remember, we're funding these high growth communities within our own county, their comprehensive plans, and they're looking at their zoning as well. So you have the city of Syracuse that just did rezone, which I think will help give clarity and which will help trigger some more development. But these other communities are looking at their zoning as well. So, but we do not want a bunch of just plastic housing popping up that in 5-10 years from now is not an asset. That's the last thing we want.
That's just appreciate all your work. This is a huge endeavor. I don't think people realize how many people are involved in reviewing before decisions are made or talks. So it's just such a great asset to have you.